I hear this a lot from young people saying they had no idea there were any women in the civil rights movement. They had no idea there were any women in the Black Panther Party. Of course there were women. There were women leaders in the civil rights movement. There were women leaders in the Black Panther Party. I was the Central Committee member. I was the communications secretary of the Black Panther Party.
Come on in, little brother. Come on in, little sisters. Y'all can sit down and get something to eat.
This was a powerful thing that the Black Panther Party was about. Again, with the programs like the breakfast program, the health clinic, the prisoner visitation program, these are not the types of activities that are done by a gang.
We would ask them a simple question: how much of this money that you've made in your business have you contributed back to the community? And over 90% of them said zero.
Well, of course, we started our own programs too. You know, the American Indian Movement, we started, but we patterned them after the Black Panthers organizations. We had free breakfasts, we built schools, we have our own clinics. We went into, of course, communications. A lot of the things that the Panthers did, we patterned our ideas off of, you know.
The Young Lords Party and the Black Panther Party wanted every municipal hospital that serviced the poor in New York to have an acupuncture experimental center inside of their drug program. And because we were the first, we became targets. 100 policemen came to the Bronx and arrested us and took us away from the center.
When these efforts started to show a little bit of success, that's when the government moved in.
We went to interview Mumia Abu-Jamal, the Peabody Award-winning journalist. We found him awaiting execution on death row.
In essence, when one looks at the aims and objectives of the federal government through the FBI, by way of the COINTELPRO program, what one really sees is a war against Black America, a war against in the words of the files, in fact, the emergence of a Black Messiah who could lead Black America.
In 1970, there were tremendous trials. The United States government began to try to sweep up all of the leftovers of the 60s into these major conspiracies. And they had the Black Panther trial, the Chicago 7 trial, the LA 17 trial, the Wilmington 10 trial, RNA 11 trial. There was just tons and tons of these types of trials.
Eldridge Cleaver, the Black Panther leader who fled to Cuba to avoid being returned to jail, arrived in Algeria today to attend a Pan-African Cultural Festival in Algiers. FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover today asserted that of the black extremist groups, the Black Panthers represent the greatest internal threat to the nation.
You might murder a freedom fighter like Bobby Hutton, but you can't murder freedom fighting. And if you do, you come up with answers that don't answer, explanations that don't explain. You come up with conclusions that don't conclude. Black people need some peace. White people need some peace. And we are going to have to fight. We're going to have to struggle. We're going to have to struggle relentlessly to bring about some peace, because the people that we're asking for peace, they're a bunch of megalomaniac warmongers, and they don't even understand what peace means. We might not be back. I might be in jail. I might be anywhere. But when I leave, you can remember I said with the last words on my lips that I am a revolutionary.
The FBI never personally killed any Panthers. They always had local police departments do their dirty work, and they began to devise a scheme that culminated in his assassination while he was asleep, drugged by his security officer, who was also a police informant.
December 8, 1969, Los Angeles, Special Weapons and Tactics. Criminal Conspiracy Section, LAPD, FBI.
There's nothing to me has been more painful out of all the people I know that died in Vietnam than those comrades who died out here in the streets. There is nothing Nothing.
Today, a judge set Newton free on $50,000 bond to await a new trial.
Before Newton got out of prison, the founder of the Black Panther Party sat and talked about his plans for the Panthers now.
I plan to go on with our expansion, and also to make even a stronger tie with the struggling people of the world, because they represent 2/3 of the people.
J. Edgar Hoover today characterized the Black Panthers as the most dangerous and violence-prone of all the extremist groups now active in the United States.
For whatever reason, Huey, after he got out of jail, he wanted to have the total control of the party, but the way the party was set up with the Central Committee, that was impossible. Geronimo, being one of the strongest personalities on the Central Committee, just had to be eliminated.
It was around this time that Elmer Geronimo Pratt was captured and branded as a agent by David Hilliard and the Central Committee of the Black Panther Party on the West Coast. Of course, this was a total fabrication. Geronimo was not an agent. In fact, the individual who pointed the finger at Geronimo and declared him an agent, Melvin Cotton Smith, was himself a police informer, an agent, who was assigned to Geronimo by David Hilliard.
A split apparently has opened in the leadership of the Black Panther Party. On a San Francisco television talk show, Huey Newton, in the studio, talked with fugitive Eldridge Cleaver, speaking by telephone from Algeria. Cleaver said a purge of Black Panther members is tearing the party apart, blamed it on David Hilliard, and demanded the ouster of Hilliard as Panther Chief of Staff.
In terms of the actual physical integrity and well-being of the Panther, Sam Napier might have been the most important person. The newspaper was the most important entity and tool, an institution that the Panthers had. And he was in charge of the paper.
Knowing that people like Twyman Myers and Robert Webb and Sam Napier, Fred Bennett, and Fred Hampton had made the ultimate sacrifices, that meant that we could either back up and give up and let them win, or we could struggle against it. On one end, we had the Huey people who were out to do us in, and on the other side, we had the government who was out to kill us. So we were in between the rock and the hard place.
Out of that came the birth of the underground, the Black Liberation Army, the armed wing of the Black Panther Party, whose stated purpose was to start and initiate an offensive military campaign against the forces of reaction.
BLA came into being when those who did political work above ground, when they were more or less from the repressive forces, was forced underground because of their political work in the community. Then they became part of BLA.
So basically it was taking the war to the enemy instead of waiting the enemy to bring the war to you. And that's what the Black Liberation Army was about.
Always wanted to represent the will of the people. They're not interested in socialism at this time because they believe that they can get their just desserts in this capitalist system.
Huey P. Newton was never the same. He eventually became Dr. Huey P. Newton, Ph.D. He eventually became a crackhead, and he eventually was assassinated in Oakland in 1989. Leonard Peltier, leader of AIM, the American Indian Movement, had been in jail for 20 years. We finally got permission to interview him. 3 days after we saw him at Leavenworth, he was moved. No one knew where to.
I'll just say it in the words of Bob Marley. Stand up for your rights. Don't let anybody tell you what you can and you cannot do. You can organize, you can educate, you can make a difference.
We have to learn how to sit down and talk with each other first. Until we can sit down and speak with each other, sit down as men and women, sit across from each other and break bread, and to learn that we're human beings. Until we can learn to sit down with each other and discuss the problems, we're not going to be able to accomplish that.
Revolution is, first of all, change, personal transformation. Revolution is not a word to be afraid of, because revolution is ultimately the most natural thing in the universe. Revolution is speaking truth to power. It is people recognizing their historical identity and their future duty and necessity to transform this reality into a better reality.